for lab 12, what we're going to be doing is making another navigation menu. So the last one we made went kind of vertically up and down on our screen, and for this one we're going to go ahead and create a horizontal navigation menu. And we're going to use what we learned about display inline and all of that to make this happen. So first what you can do is download the lab 12 materials, so go ahead and do that. And again, these are already linked together, so you just have to open them up. You can see that we have an index page and a CSS page. There are no images for this one, so I'm just going to open them both up in Visual Studio Code. My style sheet again is empty, but it is already linked here in the head. And then if we open up our index page, this is what it looks like. We have just a header, we have some filler text for the paragraph, and then we have our little menu of links up here situated as a list, and these are going to end up being our horizontal navigation menu. So this is what our lab is going to look like. We're going to have this little, it's almost going to look like cards that we're flipping through with the horizontal navigation menu. So this is what we're hoping to get to. Where the links are displayed in line. There's tabs created by only rounding a couple of the corners, and we did already learn how to do that, but we're gonna cover it again. And I also have the CSS review here for you as well, which is the page right before this lab. When you roll over it, we're going to get some hover effects, and then also 3 of the corners of our card are going to be rounded, and we're going to have a little drop shadow under each of these too. So it's going to look like this, and we're just going to walk through everything together. So the HTML is already formatted, so you don't actually need to do anything in the HTML for this, but it is good to refer to, so as you're styling it, you can come in here and see what I've already named each of these things, okay? Because I've already set up some divs in here with some ID names. The first div is going to be the nav menu, so right now it's just these lists, this little list of links. And then the content is the other div, and that's why I named it was content, and that's just going to be the rest of the half of this page. So let's go ahead and get started. So first, what we want to do is just target the list items and then use display inline to make them sit next to each other on the same line. So we can go over here and say list item, display inline. And already, that makes them flow up next to each other and removes those bullet points from them. Next, what we want to do is target the content ID. So remember, the content is going to be this header and this text, and we want it to look like this. So let's go ahead and target it and then give it some padding and a width and a border, and then round the border and add the box shadow. And we will do this step by step, okay? So let's content ID, and since it's an ID, it's going to be hashtag content. And remember, we're calling it content because that's what we named it here. And that's just a div that's surrounding that content. And then we're going to give it some padding. So something like maybe 20 pixels. So that's already starting to kind of push it inwards, which is nice. We're also going to give it a width. So I don't know, maybe 60% of the page. Alright, that looks pretty nice. We're going to give it a border, so I'm just going to do border solid so that our border shows up. Alright, what we want to do is give it a rounded corners, but just on 3 of the corners. So if I do something like border radius 5 pixels, it is going to give it a rounded corners, but it's going to round all 4 of those corners. And we just want to be really specific about which ones we round. So instead of doing that, I'm going to say border radius, actually border, and then let's say we want to do the top right border here. So border top right radius, and give that one a radius of 5 pixels. And now it's just giving a rounded corner to just the top right one. And then we want that to do it to the top right. We want to do it to the bottom right and the bottom left. So we can say border bottom right radius and 5 pixels. And then we also want to do bottom left. Border bottom left radius. Alright. So now we have 3 rounded edges, and this one is still sharp, which is perfect. And then we also want to add a box shadow. So remember to add a box shadow, and I actually have this on this CSS review page again. You're going to add a couple of different things. So we'll start with box shadow, and then this will push the shadow toward the right, this will push the shadow toward the bottom, and then this is the width of the feather, and this is the color of the shadow, okay? So if I were to say I want it to go more toward the right here, that's where I'd say 2 pixels. I don't want it to go to the bottom at all, so I'm going to say 0 pixels. And then I want to have that blur, so that's where I did the 4 pixels. And then the color, if we just do 999, that'll give us a nice little grayish color. And save that. Oh. Actually, it does not need the commas. I always forget that. There we go. Alright. So that is a pretty nice formatted content section. Now we want to go ahead and start with the horizontal nav menus. So first we're going to target our links. So let's go over here, and remember the links is A, so that's any of the links on our page. And we're going to give them a background color, and it doesn't have to be the same color as mine, but I'm just going to make mine black. So look at that. We need to change the font color, so that's just color. I'm going to make them white. Alright. Now we want to take away the underline, and that is text decoration none. And then we want to set a padding, because they're really close to the edge of their boxes, so padding, I don't know, maybe something like 5 pixels. Let's see what that does. That looks pretty good. Maybe I'll set it to 10. Okay. And then margin, we'll also do something like 10 pixels. Well, maybe I want the margin to be less, because I don't want them to be that spread apart from each other. We'll do 5. Alright. Perfect. Okay, now we want to give them a border. So remember to give them a border. It's just going to be border solid. And you won't be able to see the border very well, so if you want to change the border color, you can. Alright, and now I want to round 2 out of 4 of each of the button borders. So I just want to round the top left and the top right of each of these. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say border top left radius 5 pixels. And you can't see that very well actually because it's pushed to the top of my page. So let me push those down actually. Let's see, my nav menu right here is what we want to target because we want to target the whole nav menu. So I'm going to go down here and do hashtag nav menu and say margin top 20 pixels to kind of push it down a little bit. Oh. Nav menu actually has a hyphen, or not a hyphen, underscore. There we go. And now you can see that I have that rounding on that one. So now I want to do border top right radius, and also do that as 5 pixels. And there you go, nice and rounded. I also want to give it a box shadow. So let's give this a box shadow similar to my other one. So here we did this box shadow. We can actually just use the same box shadow, so if you don't want to type it twice, we can just copy it and go ahead and paste it down here. And remember, this is how many pixels we want it to go to the right, how many to the bottom, and then how much we want that blur, and then the color. Alright, so we've got that little drop shadow. So we're almost done. Next we want to give it that hover effect. So we want to change the background color on the hover, and then we want to change at least one other element on hover. So you can change the font color, or if you don't want to change the font color, you can change the font family or the size. So let's say A on hover, we want the background color to be red. And then I want the font color to turn to white. And now you can see that's happening, which is great. Great. So now the last thing that we need to do is just to align everything. So we already did target the nav menu ID to kind of push this down a little bit. But if we're looking at this, I'm also noticing that maybe we want to kind of push the content ID up a little bit, and then also over a bit, or maybe this one over a bit. So let's mess with that. So let's do the content one. Let's go back to where content is, and I'm just gonna say margin top, because it's the top of this div's margin, maybe -2 pixels to try to move it upward a little bit. Okay. Maybe we'll do -5 pixels. There we go. Now they're kind of sitting right there. And right now you can see that border overlapping with it, and that's just because I have a border color of red on. So you can also make this red too if we wanted to. Border color red. So it looks nice and smooth. Or you can make both of them black. It's up to you. I think I might actually make both of them a dark gray. Nice. Okay. And then the last thing is maybe to move these over a little bit more. So the nav menu is here, and I'm going to do margin left, and then I'm going to do -20 pixels and see what that looks like. See how it's pushing it over a little bit? Maybe something like 40. We're almost there. Let's try 45. That's perfect. So your final lab should look something like this. Once you're done, save your changes, zip it up, and submit it to Canvas.